someone from all continents here. Yeah, welcome to the what we would call the relaunch of the Farm to Regional Scale Integration Network. It's actually I think the second start, and we are very pleased to welcome you. This is the second meeting of this kind. We had a first one on Monday morning to accommodate let's say the time zones further east from Europe. We have a packed agenda, and we will actually briefly introduce ourselves. We are a bit unpolite because we move the introduction of most of you to the breakout rooms that we will have later, simply for time reasons. I hope you understand this, but we think that in the course of time we will hopefully get to know each other a little bit more frequently and more intensively. Yeah, so we will record this meeting. We are not recording the breakout rooms. That's technically not possible, but we will come back from the breakout rooms to report later. And I would like to show you our agenda after our introduction. So my name is Klaus Deblitz. I'm from the Thünen Institute of Farm Economics, which is a federal research institute under the Ministry of Agriculture, but we like to say that we are independent with a separate statute. So we enjoy some freedom, let's say. And I'm here in the institute responsible for what I would say livestock economics, and I'm also the coordinator of the Agri-Benchmark Beef and Sheep as well as Pig Network. And I would also like to introduce my colleague Johann Schütte, who is not on this picture. We asked him to assist us with the breakout rooms because we probably going to have 3 breakout rooms today due to the number of participants. So thank you, and I hand over to Jelto for introduction.
Yeah, also from my side, a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm very much looking forward to getting to know you. My name is Jelto. I'm basically the same function as Klaus, but I do the coordination for the Agri-Benchmark Cash Crop Network. So everything regarding arable farming is my business. And then last but definitely not least, I hand over to Nina to introduce you.
Thank you, Jelto. Also, warm welcome from my side. My name is Nina Grasnick. I'm a trained agricultural economist and started to work at the coordination unit climate of the Thünen Institute 1 year ago. And my research project there focuses on international research collaboration on mitigating climate change in agriculture. And I'm also a member of the GRA Secretariat team and support them in enhancing research activities, especially in Europe. Yeah, and I think with this, I already want to give the word again to Klaus to give an overview of the meeting agenda.
Exactly. The idea is actually to have a quick overview of GRA, that because not all people here are aware of the Global Research Alliance. Then Jelto will give a quick overview of the Agri-Benchmark Network, because that will, from our point of view, play a crucial role in what we have in terms of ideas for this network here. And then Nina will report about the result of a survey that you filled in while registering. Thank you very much for this. And then we have the 3 breakout sessions with introduction and a round trip where we focus on the content first. So what are the topics that are of interest for us? And we will basically do a real-time recording of that and share that later in the plenary session with everybody. And then we have a round of next steps and closing, and the whole thing shouldn't last more than 90 minutes. Some technical issues. Thank you for muting your microphone while not talking. You feel free to keep your video on. It's always nice to see people unless the connection is getting bad. And raise hand in WebEx is on the bottom. The second button to the red cross there, you click reactions, and then you see there is raise hand and some other emojis. So that's how the system works. And if anything, just raise your hand or type into the chat, which is on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you. So, Nina, I think it's you again.
Yeah, thank you, Klaus. So just a quick overview of the GIA, and if you have more questions, of course, feel free to also write me an email after this meeting. So the GIA was launched in 2009 at the climate conference in Copenhagen, and since then continues to grow in its membership. So right now the GIA has 64 member countries, and the aim of the GRA is to bring countries together to find ways to grow more food without growing greenhouse gas emissions, and this especially through research activities. So the GIA works mainly through its 4 research groups, which focus on livestock, paddy rice, croplands, and the integrative research group where we belong to, and I will explain this in more detail later. And some years ago, it was estimated that around 3,000 scientists are involved in GIA activities or related activities. And if we now look at the list of partners, we can see that the GIA partners with regional and international development organizations, as well as research funding agencies, also United Nations agencies, and is also an observer of the IPCC process, which allows, through the GIA membership, to nominate authors into the IPCC process. Yeah, and if we now look at the research groups, we see this 4 research groups which have several research networks with them, and these networks are all open for everyone. So feel free, if you find a topic here, to just write the network leader to be also included in their mailing list. But today it's about the Farm to Regional Scale Integration Network, which you can find here under the Integrative Research Group, and which was actually launched some years ago by Petra Havlik, and by then had the focus on regional scale modeling, which we might shift a bit, but this is also open to discussion today and to the next months. And yeah, I don't know if I saw that Pamela Johnson was also here, who's IRG co-chair. Maybe she has some few words to say from the IRG group.
My internet is not very great right now, but I will just say I'm very happy to see the Thunen Institute take on co-leading this network, and very interesting to see where the members take it. Socioeconomics is a very interest to many of the GRA members, and I think this will be a very good place for those discussions to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. Yeah, and with this, I also want to hand over to Jelto, but just quickly show you this map where you can see the overlapping membership of the AgriBenchmark network, where we want to partner with, which are, for which Jelto and Klaus are working, and the GRA memberships. So we can already see that there's a lot of potential for synergies between these 2 networks. Yeah, and with this, I want to hand over to Jelto to give us deeper insights into the AgriBenchmark work.
Yeah, thanks a lot for handing over to me. I would like to use this opportunity to introduce you to some of the key ideas and principles of our network. And the simple reason is that, as mentioned before, we think that there are a lot of synergies that we can lift in order to promote the work on research regarding greenhouse gas mitigation in agriculture. And so the idea is really that you have an idea about our expertise and our connections that can be mobilized in order to generate more results for climate change mitigation. Yeah, please go ahead. So the key idea of this whole initiative is to bring together experts from agricultural research from around the world. So in different branches, we have more than 60 scientists or scientific organizations and advisory institutions in our network. It's important to note that we are global, non-profit, and independent. And our, as we say, USP is that we have standardized methods which allows us to make global comparison of agricultural production systems. And we are organized branch-wise. So as you already heard, Klaus is managing the livestock branch. There is a colleague Hilda of us who is doing the horticulture, and there's someone in aquaculture, and last but not least, it's me doing the crop work. Can you move ahead, please? And the key activity that we do on a regular basis is that we establish and maintain so-called typical farms. If you wonder about the term in this presentation here on the link under here, you can find a scientific paper that explains you in more detail what I will only touch upon very briefly now to give you an idea about what we are doing. So what is a typical farm? It's, first of all, you can think of it as a case study. So we are striving to identify key features, technical features, and economics of prevailing production systems. So that means we are not doing any statistical averages, but we look for what is the production system in a given, like sheep or arable production, that is in a key region dominating. So just to give you one example, so do growers use no-till or do they conventional till? What kind of intensity levels in crop care and fertilizer applications is being used? Or when it comes to livestock, what kind of housing systems do they use? Do they feed with grass primarily, or with corn, or with silage? And just to illustrate the idea, think of a typical US or Italian food. So these major difference we are interested, but we don't care whether the hamburger has tomato on it or not. Can you continue, please? And these typical farm data for this case study, they are created through our scientific partners together with regional advisors and producers. So that means the advisors are a substitute for statistical information, which usually is not available on these items which I just mentioned to you. And this so-called focus group is not only good for the establishment of the typical farm, this data set, but also to monitor evolution over time. So we do an annual update of all the key figures such as prices for inputs and outputs, wages, and so forth. And the second role of this focus group is the ability to become a sounding board to assess innovations and policies. So for instance, what would be the options for growers to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and what kind of implications would that have? So what are the economic consequences, but even also, does it have any consequences on the overall farm management, on rotations, you name it. Yeah, please continue. And just to give you an idea, since we get some seed money from Thünen, but we also have to search for money from external sources. We have a broad range of collaboration partners, both in industry, as you can see on the right-hand side, as well as with other institutions such as European Union, World Bank, or FAO. Yeah, and just to give you a few snapshots on very typical outputs from the work we do. Here on the left-hand side, you see a comparison in the cost of production for beef, and you see the different bars here attached to each other. On the right-hand side, you see a rather detailed map of trade flows, and on the very left-hand side, on the lower end, you see the composition of feed cost, again, for livestock production. Can it continue, please? Yeah, and as I mentioned, we do quite a bit of work in greenhouse gas mitigation strategies and their economics, and this is what I would like to show you one example from the work that a colleague of mine in the crop section does. And what he did, he calculated and designed mitigation strategies for a typical farm in the US and in Brazil, and he was focusing on corn. And what you can see here on the left part of the graph, you have a baseline of emissions from diesel, from soil nitrogen, and from fertilizer manufacture. And then his first attempt was to look what can be done in order to improve the efficiency of nitrogen use. And in a second step, he also analyzed the effect from cover crops. And on the right-hand side, you see the same developments for Brazil. And Nina, if you continue, we can see how many greenhouse gases can be reduced by those measures. And you see that this can be as little as 9% or as high as 52%. And if you continue, Nina, please. These are the associated costs that occur in order to realize that. And I would like to highlight the fact that two of the measures have a negative cost. That means they are actually profitable for the growers. And of course, with regard to greenhouse gas mitigation, this is a very relevant feature because it would allow us to work hand in hand with profitability rather than demanding growers to forego profits. And Nina, one more click, please. And if you relate the cost changes to the changes in greenhouse gases, we calculate so-called greenhouse mitigation cost. And as you can see, the improved nitrogen efficiency on the US farm basically, again, has a negative cost, while the use of cover crops, while the reduction of greenhouse gas is substantial, it's also very expensive. We talk about $130 US. Yeah, and then we also care about options to improve. So if this practice is not very relevant currently, then of course, if more growers would go for that strategy, then we would be able to generate economies of scale, and that would allow us to reduce the cost to about $70 per ton here in this case. And with this, I hand over to Klaus, who will present some results for the beef work.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jelto. I think one thing is important, that you know that if you want to get change on the ground with producers, you have to show some cost and hopefully some profitability going in line with this. The example I'm showing you here is from our beef network, where we have been doing quite some work in South America, in Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, Paraguay, and we continue doing so. And the work was actually on silvopasture system as a tool to achieve multiple wins, as you can see from these charts here. Jelto said we use the focus groups for collecting and validating and updating data. We also use them for developing farm development strategies jointly, which is what we did here. And as you see here from the what we have done here in a 10-year simulation period with real farm situations, we could show that with this introduction of the system, you have more grass and per hectare, you have higher productivity of animals per hectare, and so more live weight, let's say. But at the same time, we could show that in most cases you could lower the greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram beef produced. We also had a more comprehensive look looking at animal welfare. We even measured animal welfare on the ground, and then we could eventually show the that the whole thing was getting profitable over time. And you might ask yourself, if that is so great, why is it not everywhere? The main reason is you need investment. And second, you need knowledge. And this is what we are working on. But this provides the potential, basically, to produce the same on less land or to produce more on the same land that you're using. So you have a potential for less, let's say, deforestation or more renaturation. So that's from my side in terms of examples. We have, I think, 2 questions here in the chat, if I see this correctly. These are relate to the crop, so I suppose that you move that to the breakout group where Yelto will be in, if you don't mind. Okay, Nina?
Okay.
Nina, are you?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm back. Sorry,
okay.
I had to unmute myself. Yeah, thank you, Klaus and Yelto. As pointed out before, I will give you a quick overview of the profile of our participants, as you have all answered our short questionnaire in the registration process. Also, thanks again for this. So we got great feedback from 55 people from 30 countries all around the world. Most are from Europe, but we also have all other world regions registered, which is great. And regarding production systems that you analyze, we see a clear focus on livestock, which is here in blue. Sorry, there's no, yeah, the label is missing. But also many people working with the mixed systems and crops. And we are also happy to see that, sorry. Yeah, sorry, there's something wrong with the presentation. So we saw that many of you are already involved in research regarding farm level strategies to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions already, and are also interested in future projects in this topic. And also 2/3 of the registered people claimed that they already had experience with upscaling farm level data to the regional level, which gives us or shows high potential for continued work on that topic in this network. And with this, I give back to Yelto. Yelto, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, before we break out for more detailed discussions, we would like to share our vision where this network might be heading to. This is, of course, not built in stone, and we don't want you to sign up for it, but just to make transparent what our idea is. And first of all, we think this network should become or can become the platform to discuss concepts and results regarding agricultural greenhouse gas mitigation strategies. Then, of course, we also want to improve and expand the knowledge about the feasibility and the economics of greenhouse gas mitigation strategies, so over and beyond what is already there. And with that, the ultimate aim is to help politicians and research managers to prioritize agricultural mitigation strategies by identifying those which are relatively cheap to achieve and easy to realize. So that is basically our key idea for this whole work. Yeah, and unless there is an immediate question, please feel free also to refer to that in the breakout discussions. As I said, this is really just the first attempt to write down what we want to achieve. while Nina is working, so she's now organizing 3 breakout groups. So don't be surprised if you get an invite to either of the 3.
So first of all, thanks to my group here for the lively discussion. We had actually a representation of people from with different backgrounds. Let's say natural science, crop, livestock, breeding, yeah, and a lot of people dealing with the measurement and also using own tools to measure greenhouse gas emissions. And that's actually what we found here. Nina, can you have a look? Someone is not muted so that I get some noises here. So we had a look here. I think tools were mentioned frequently, and we basically said that we're gonna ask you guys anyway to provide us with some information that will come later, and that would include tools that you're using. Then we found quite interesting that some people are looking at breeds, actually at cattle breeds, and their impact on GHG emissions. So can you use basically a breed, different breeds, and can you change breeding objectives to this? Then we found more or less agreement here that some of us are working in the field. Aline from the USDA in US mentioned her rice work here. So that there is little data, but that is really necessary to measure things in the field. So that and understanding the systems as a precondition. So I said Jelto, she could be an ambassador for cash crop already. And then we also agreed that went into the same direction that we need a regional approach to reflect the natural conditions and different feeding conditions. So that's all on livestock. And then it was mentioned that it's not just mitigation that we should look at, but also adaptation, because a lot of farmers in the short term struggle with adapting to the climate change. I mean, even in Germany, we know about this now after 3-4 consecutive years of drought for German conditions. And sharing basically this expertise would be another thing that we should do. I think that is something we can agree on immediately. And then we found also that there is a lot of research around indeed, but not often it is implemented. So it needs sufficient incentives, especially economic incentives and transparency, let's say, about implementation practices. And then we also found that while we are talking about mitigation measures, we should take into account that these can be different or are perceived differently in depending on the land ownership. And there were 2 examples here mentioned: family farms versus rented, let's say commercial companies that might require different approaches to implement measures. And then we have this private versus communal land, of course, mainly in Africa, where also you probably need different approaches to address people. Yeah, and then we also found that gaps here are economic cost. In some, this was an example from Costa Rica here, and the upscaling and the expectations to us as lead, or maybe to the group, let's say, or what should come out here. Well, we couldn't do much on this. Maybe you have some more here. It's one is the economic evaluation of GHG mitigation measures and upscaling. I think that's very much what we found here. I hope I put this more or less correctly. If not, please that someone from my group corrects me or adds to this. No, it was obviously perfect. Thank you.
Nina, you want to continue?
Yeah, it's fine. I will just mention the points that were not yet mentioned by Klaus, because there's obviously quite some overlap. So we had also quite diverse group. We also had a colleague there from South Africa, from New Zealand, yeah, and from North America and Europe. Can you see my screen now? Yeah, okay, great. And also a mix of scientists from natural science, but also with some economic background. And yeah, the three major like key topics that were pointed out was yeah, reducing nitrous oxide emissions, then methane, and increasing carbon sequestration, for example, through agroforestry systems. And they're looking at really at the farm level at what kind of managing practices and how much do they cost. Yeah, so to find the optimal economic perspective. And then as Klaus also mentioned, so how do we incentivize farmers to actually implement this mitigation measures? So there should be investment into innovation and also market-oriented incentives to also look at, yeah, from the consumer side, so to increase the willingness to pay for products that were produced climate friendly. And then also to look at differences in seasonal and regional mitigation measures, and also not looking on only at the farm level, but beyond, so at the whole farm food system. And then also taking into consideration issues of food security, which was raised especially by our colleague from South Africa. Yeah, which has to be taken into consideration, and to also look at new farming approaches. So to have this more holistic approach also on how mitigation measures might affect biodiversity and diversification and so on. And then in general, to bring it into practice, it's important to bridge research and practice, and to find also the right decision support tools, which might be also one of the projects we could initiate in the network. What are decision tools are out there, and yeah, and maybe evaluating them, what works well and not. Yeah, and also to look at the temporal dimension of mitigation measures. And then expectations to the network, especially having the opportunity to share knowledge and learn from each other. So, for example, through webinar series or discussion fora, and also focusing on the beginning only on a few key projects, and also develop a database for data that is open accessible for countries that might not have good data yet, but also maybe have an expert database to connect with experts from different fields and have contact details, yeah, on a quick view to find project partners. And for possible funding, there was the idea that it could also be done through the GWA member countries, as this topic becomes more and more important for everyone. This has to be discussed. Yeah, I don't know if there's something I missed, so my group, feel free to add something here. No, I think it's fine. Okay. Then I hand over to Jelto.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Indeed, of course, you will find a number of items that you have heard about already. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So the first issue I think which is new is the desire to understand the trade-off between different climate gases, and also to keep in mind the full system interactions between interventions. Then we had the question how to motivate producers. I understand that this is a little bit broader than what you just mentioned, because it takes into account that there might be also cases where economics alone don't help. The other stuff that is closely linked to what you just mentioned is point number 4, but goes a little bit beyond, and that is the potential for digital technologies to monitor farmers' practices, both with regard to the option to reward practices, but also for policing activities which are no longer permitted. And then there was one item which I think is also new to this list, and that was the challenge of negative cost estimates. There was the notion that economists tend to be maybe too optimistic sometimes, and because one questions oneself if it's profitable to change, why people don't change it in the very beginning. And there is one last item which is in itself beyond the expertise of our group, I guess, but of course which has massive implications to the work we do, and that is the question about perspectives of non-livestock products, proteins. Because there was once, would like to quote someone who said, "We are eagerly working on the improvement of current systems, but we have to consider the fact that there are many people out there who simply question the current systems at all." And that is something which I think we should definitely keep an eye on. As far as expectations are concerned, I think that is pretty much what has been said before. Maybe the only addition is also the capacity building dimension, so that we should also offer trainings and so forth. As far as funding is concerned, there was mentioning from this EGP soil project that's a call that has been mentioned last time already, and there was the hint from Hayden, I think, that there is also a small funding to initiate projects, especially with developing countries where there is a funding of up to 6 months for PhD students for joint research activities. Just a question to my group, so please feel free to jump in if I missed anything or misrepresented you in my summary. So that doesn't seem to be the case, so then I will stop sharing my screen and hand over to Klaus for the wrap up and the next steps.
Yeah, thank you to everybody. I think this is quite a reasonable result for the short time we had already. Please be aware that that this is our first meeting. It's a kickoff, and our idea is that we basically come back to you in, let's say, due time, or how you say so nicely, with a kind of summary of these 2 kickoff meetings. In terms of the next steps, I don't know. We have some own ideas, but we would like to ask you for proposals on this rather than just running a show here. But we have already prepared a slide, and I think some of the things that were mentioned in the feedback here are actually overlapping with what we thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but please feel free before I continue talking. Nobody dares say. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. Are we sharing the screen again, Nina?
Yeah, I can
Or
do it.
am I sharing my screen? I don't. Doesn't matter. I share my screen, Nina.
Okay.
Share screen. So this is what we had in mind. Yes. So now, okay. So our first idea is to basically to you, because I think sharing experience, data, and knowledge is something everybody expects here, and I think other groups in the GRA are doing the same. So if you could actually send us results from previous research that you have been doing in the field we are talking about, current projects, also methods and tools that you are using, because I think it's a good idea to look at these different tools. There were at least 2 tools today that mentioned that I never heard about, and I thought I know some of this farm stuff in terms of measuring mitigations or greenhouse gas emissions. What kind of current projects you do, and what kind of ideas for future projects proposals you have. That might come a little bit later, but I think we might build on what we have to think about that. And then the webinar series is something that we actually we thought about too. We already identified from our side some content for this, but we are absolutely happy to accept contributions from your side. And I think we will also provide you with a proposal on a time plan for this, correct? And then we also thought, but I think this is something we mentioned in the Monday session already, that a policy brief for the COP26. I understood that this is also being addressed by the, let's say, by the higher level of the GRA. And I think we can probably make as a group here, from this group, make a contribution to that rather than every group doing independently something on their own. I think, Pamela, you mentioned that already on Monday, if I'm not wrong. I think Pamela is here. See?
Might have been Jean-François.
Oh, Jean-François.
Monday.
Sorry. Yes, Jean-François mentioned that. Sorry. Okay. Good. But yeah, that's correct, is it?
I know other networks have prepared different materials or tried to engage side meetings and stuff on different meetings, but that's not an area of expertise of mine.
Okay.
I don't know if Hayden has a comment on that.
Well, look, I suggest that we just communicate this with Jean-François again, because he addressed this issue too. Okay. And then we thought in terms of communication that I think we need to revise the GRA homepage, so we come back to you on that. If you have ideas what should be on there for now or for later, please let us know. And then we also thought about creating a networking platform for this group, for example on LinkedIn. This is what we actually use as a social media. We are not using at the moment Facebook and other things, to be honest. Maybe we are too old-fashioned or just too old for this. But I think LinkedIn is a professional network that is always good to put on something. And then we need to think about a next meeting. And if I'm not wrong, Nina and Jelto, correct me if I'm wrong. We thought that it is realistic to do that in September and not from September onwards, but not earlier because of the other things that have to be done and the summer break that in the Northern Hemisphere at least is taking place in July and August. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And of course, feel free if you feel that you want to meet beforehand with some people, just text us and we can provide you with the mailing list, or hopefully we also have the networking platform set up already, so you can also independently meet. And yeah, thank you, Carl, for this hint on the drive. This was also something we had in mind. So yeah, just wait for our email next week and we will provide you with more information where to send the reports or upload. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so if that's okay for everybody, then please, if anybody would like to have some more comments at the moment, I think there's a question on the agri-benchmark webinars. Yeah, that will not be take place before September either. Is that correct? At least from my side, I'm not able, because we have our annual conferences ahead of us now, and then we have a little summer break where we have to look after kids or something else, which is not work related. Yeah, so if everybody is happy with this first round, I think we are quite happy, I can say. Thank you very much for your contributions and for your interest. We were almost 30 people plus the 20 people on Monday. That's quite nice to see the interest, and we are looking forward to future cooperation with you and exchange of ideas, knowledge, and hopefully one day being able to meet personally, because all these video conferences are really tiring, I must say. I already my eyes already gone really bad. I have an eye infection now and I think it's because I'm watching TV all day.
Yeah, thanks a lot also from my side. All the best. Bye.
Yeah, also thank you from my side. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
And Nina, Yelto, we stay in line, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.